Episode 121 of the podcast. This week we're talking about owner homework, the kind of instructions we can give them, and also helping them understand what they get for their effort. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. Before we get into the instructions that we can give owners, I want us to be able to communicate to them pretty well about what they get for their effort, why they should go home and try it. So this might actually be an episode for you to send owners to. Episode 121, right? Like, okay, find out why it's in your best interest to do this. So one of the reasons why it's in an owner's interest to spend some time teaching is because they're going to have a dog who is learning to be safer for all types of handling. Because it's more than just grooming. The kind of problems that a dog is going to run into in a grooming shop can also be reflected in home care, medications, wound care, veterinary care. So we want them to know that it's more than just helping their groomer. This is more about helping their dog be good for grooming in the long-term kind of care that their dog is going to be needing throughout their lifetime. So if we express that to owners well, then they go, oh, wait, okay, so I'm putting in this effort to help my dog for his whole life, not just because, the groomer wants to get his ears even or to make it easier for the groomer. You are not doing this effort and teaching your dog to be good for your groomer because your groomer can simply refuse you. I know somebody out there just swerved off the road. Just relax for a moment, right? Like we're trying to help our dogs be safer, right? So as a groomer, that's my clientele. As a dog owner, I want my own dogs to be safer and safer for everybody, including their owners. Because a lot of these dogs that have problems being groomed, you will find at some point in their life, they're going to have a problem at home too. Maybe they're running around outside and they come in the house and there's like a bloody paw print. Now you need to examine that. You need to find out where they're bleeding. That is not the time to find out that it's not just a grooming problem. So owners, there's a really good reason for you to be thinking about your dog's future. Even if your dog's already 5 or 6, even if your dog's already 10, certainly we have dogs that live to be 15, 18, 20 even, right? So be thinking about if we spend some time now, that might only be a couple of years, but it might be the whole lifetime. And it's just safer for you in the long run as a dog owner. Now also, putting in some effort, you're going to have a dog who is better for the veterinarian as well as for the groomer, but also if you have like a pet sitter or a doggy daycare, or maybe they're boarding someplace and they need medication. Now I am using the example of medication quite a bit, but you know what? I've known so many dogs who later on in life, they needed eye ointment every day, or, they needed to be wiped down in their bum area every day as they got older. We need to plan ahead for the kind of physical care that usually shows up as behavior problems for grooming and vet visits. Because often when they're young, that's when they're getting that kind of physical care. But later in years, as they get older, a lot more of that happens at home. And I want our owners to have a really safe and good experience with their dogs. I want their dogs to be able to handle that for them. So as owners, that's part of what they get for their effort. So if you're an owner listening right now, this is an investment for you so that you don't have to worry, what is my dog going to do if I have to put in ear medication? Is he going to be able to handle it? What if I have to check his dew claw? What if I have to change a bandage, right? Well, you're going to know. And this is just investing into a future, especially if we work on it before there's a problem. Right? With a dog who isn't sore, with a dog who doesn't absolutely need a medication this afternoon, right? Now, here's another one, another good reason for an owner to put in the effort. When you work with this dog and you help them be comfortable with it, calm, comfortable, and cooperative, right? You're also going to have a dog who can be groomed to perfection, right? I think all groomers want to do a really lovely job. And I think sometimes the public doesn't know that's why we get into grooming. Sure, we love the dogs and we love to pet them and give baths and do brushing and stuff, but we also like to do a nice pretty trim, which is what our owners often want. Not always. We have plenty of owners who are like, he's a dog who's going to run in the fields all day with me, and I just want something simple to take care of, where I don't have to brush out burrs, or easy to rinse off when we've been to the beach. But even then, they want something that looks like a professional did it. Because I think sometimes owners think that if we shave them down, take a clippered down short all over, that's going to be really, really easy to do. But it's not. For a dog, that's a lot of meticulous work. That's taking a clipper or a tool or shears over every itty bitty millimeter of their body. And we should be able to do a clip down, a really, really short haircut that looks nice and even. It doesn't look choppy, and it looks like it just grows that way. That's our goal as groomers. So if a dog is well behaved for us, we can achieve that so much better. And also, you think about from an owner's point of view, what you get for your effort is also the dog who's really good for that, the dog who is a joy to groom, is always going to be a dog that groomers are like, we had an opening, and we can bring him in, right? He's not a wild card. If we get a surprise opening and you're on a waiting list, right? The dog who's well behaved, yeah, sure, we can do that. We know exactly how long it's going to take him because we know he's really stable for this. He's a really, really good, solid dog, well behaved. We know what to expect. So it doesn't sound like much, but if you've ever tried to get a dog into a grooming setting and they've been booked up for a while, which, I know plenty of groomers who are booked up entirely. There's no wiggle room. They are booked solid, 6 months out, a year out. So if you're thinking about oh, wow, okay, so the dog who is well behaved for grooming is also more likely to be the one that if they need to squeeze somebody in, they're going to make the effort for him because it's not going to be a high risk. Now, here is another one. This is going to be a dog who is easier to keep healthy and clean. Now, for a lot of owners, even just the process of learning how to be touching your dog and moving around them and teaching them to be good for it is also teaching you how to examine your dog and look them all over. And I think that there's some real value in that for an owner, for them to realize that I can touch my dog anywhere and I know how my dog responds. And I can notice little subtle differences and changes because I do work with my dog. And I think that that's really important. So as a dog owner, if I'm petting my dog and he winces a little bit, to me, I know that's unusual. And I can go in and take a look. Ooh, was there something sore there? Or did I just rub on carpet and just zap you? Here it is, kind of dry weather here in New England right now as I'm recording this. I zapped my dog the other day. I'm actually not sure if I zapped him or he zapped me, but I did see the little spark, right? But if you are used to holding your dog and you're used to working around them and you have created that kind of a bond where your dog knows you are one of the trusted people who can touch them anywhere, you're far more likely to notice changes. And that's going to help you keep your dog healthy because now you will notice a change before it's so extreme or blatantly obvious that it's gone on too long. Some things that I have noticed, and actually my husband, who's not a dog guy, he's a pretty average owner, but he noticed at one point, hey, I went to I was petting him and went over to his shoulder and he kind of moved away from me. Just a gentle move away, right? This is a dog that does not need to do anything dramatic to indicate that, oh, I'm not comfortable with that, right? And it's very easy to catch on to if your dog is so used to being touched everywhere. As opposed to a dog who doesn't like it, where if they move away when you go to pet their shoulder, you don't know what that means. That could just mean, I don't like it when you touch my shoulder, right? We want our dogs to like it. And we want to have that bond with them. Now, that doesn't mean that every Tom, Dick, and Harry should be able to touch your dog all over, but there should be some trusted few who can, right? The adults in a household should be able to touch a dog anywhere. Maybe not the kids, only because we don't necessarily want putting that burden on kids, right? We don't want to necessarily push that. I would like a dog to let a kid touch them anywhere, but I don't want to necessarily tell kids to be touching their dog everywhere. Hopefully you can kind of understand where I'm coming from there. There are just some things that should be left to the parents, depending on the age of the kid. I was 14 when I started working with dogs. When I was 14, I started doing nails on our dog, nail trimming on our dog, because I was already doing it, right? So be thinking about the kind of things that we can do differently if you spend time working with your dog. And the benefit for you, the owner, as an owner, right? To know that in a bind, if you feel comfortable trimming nails, your dog is good for it. How cool is that? Now, I know a lot of owners aren't comfortable with things like trimming nails or, trimming up a little bit of hair around a bum or around their eyes. But if you are, or you find yourself in a bind where you're like, I've got to trim this little piece out, your dog will let you. Right? There's some real value to that. And I think it's part of keeping your dog healthy and clean and being able to work with your dog. Because if you can't do it, it's very kind of weird to ask a stranger to do it. Like your groomer, to your dog, your groomer is a stranger. That veterinarian is a stranger. That vet tech is a stranger. If they aren't comfortable with you doing it too, then they're not going to be really comfortable with a stranger doing it. So there's some real benefits for you as an owner to work with your dog and to make your dog the safest dog they can be. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes and tell all of your friends. So again, this episode is more for the owners. And like I said, this might be one that you send your owners to, like go listen to episode 121, because I want you to think about some of the things that we can teach our dogs at home. I think it's sort of a myth where people think, well, you can't really teach a dog about grooming because you don't have tubs and you don't have dryers. But it's not like you live in a distraction-free environment. There are a lot of core things that dogs can know. And the more things they know, the more tools they have, the better they're prepared for the things that they don't know, right? The better they'll be able to handle the things that they can't be around at home. So some of the things I want you to think about. Now, this podcast, I talk an awful lot about the 3 C's. I want a dog to be calm, comfortable, and cooperative. And if we're always looking through that lens, no matter what we're doing, be thinking about, is this helping my dog be calm, comfortable, and cooperative or not? Because I think it's easier to spot than, is my dog stressed? Is my dog anxious? Is my dog fearful? Right? I mean, generally, if you can tell if your dog is calm and comfortable and cooperative. So from an owner's point of view, keep that in mind. Okay? Like that's kind of our goal. And that's what we want to build and what we want to foster so that they have this good experience their whole lives. Now, while you don't have grooming equipment at home, I want you to start thinking in terms of touching your dog with stuff and things. So I start my puppy owners off with, don't worry about the brush in this moment. Let's start off with just touching your dog all over, right? And helping them be calm for it, touching them, moving around, and then start just picking up random objects off the coffee table, right? Pick up a coaster, pick up a pair of reading glasses. And you might even be thinking, oh, but I don't want my puppy to think that those are toys. Yes, and that's part of why I have you pick up random things, because grooming equipment are not toys either. I don't want them doing lots of sniffing and playing and, exploring with their mouths, right? Grooming equipment isn't necessarily a toy either. So we want this kind of calm, gentle, I'm just touching you with stuff. Now, the other reason why I have owners do that is because there's no set idea in your mind about how you're supposed to move a coaster over your dog's foot. right? Like if I tell you to use the brush, you're far more likely to focus on brushing than just touching with a brush. Now, brushing is going to be important, but I think that that's something that's important to learn from your groomer or from a breeder or from someone in general. Like that's kind of a one-on-one lesson for your dog's individual coat type, what kind of brush they need, what kind of comb they might need, what kind of technique you might use for that individual dog's coat type. But to start touching them all over with stuff, then when we get to a brush, that's just another piece of thing. That's just another piece of stuff. If they're used to, hey, sometimes I pick up random things and I just touch you all over with it. This one's a glove. I'm going to touch you all over with a glove. And then with a pen. And then with a face cloth or whatever is nearby. But to get them used to like, oh, touching all over. And being calm, comfortable, and cooperative with it. So I want you to think about making handling a relaxing experience. And that's why I don't usually have people reach for the cookies, reach for dog treats, because I want this to just kind of be, oh, this is something we do when we're ready to hang out. Maybe we're watching TV. Find a time when your dog is calm and relaxed already, and just kind of build on some of these skills while they're calm and relaxed. Because we need to give them something to work with before they go into a grooming shop that is not calm and relaxed. We need to build up to that. So we need to give them some experiences that make sense for that. And so if we start off while they're relaxed at home, maybe they're on their dog bed, they're hanging out, and you walk over and just start, touching them all over. So here is another one. Another thing that I think is really important for owners to know. While they're being good, end. Right? You can end it while they're being good and just walk away. Yeah, nice buddy. You'll get a feel for how long they can handle and just walk away while they're being good. Leave them sitting there going, whatever, And I want you to think about that builds this idea of, oh, that wasn't bad. That was kind of just interesting. Whatever, not a big deal. But it's not a big party. It's not a lot of treats. This is calm time. And then the next part that I want you to think about as an owner is also starting to work with having your dog stand. Now, sometimes this is where groomers are like, well, dog owners don't have, grooming equipment. But you know what? Sitting on the floor with your dog and asking them to stand while you do this, or while you're sitting on the couch and asking them to stand even on the floor, believe it or not, standing for the amount of grooming that we do is part of the issue that a lot of dogs have. Now, sometimes that's because their physical limitations of standing for that long just is uncomfortable, right? We all have met dogs with like really, really twisted up bent legs. Like they don't stand up for a long amount of time comfortably. Or maybe they have like a hip problem, something like that. But if you can get them used to, this is a part I need you to stand for. Now that you're comfortable being touched with stuff and things, and you're calm, comfortable, and cooperative while I touch you with stuff and things, I'm going to have you stand while I touch you with stuff and things, and move all over, and maybe pick up each foot, and pick up each leg, and touch every little area of your dog's body. Now, I'm also going to add in here, there is no area on your dog's body that is taboo. Okay, if you want a groomer to trim it, it should be something that's getting touched at home too. Okay, so just be aware that there's a couple of sensitive areas. There are tickle spots right there at the flank where their back leg meets their belly. Pretty common tickle spot. A lot of dogs, as soon as you lift their tail, want to sit down. These are things that an owner can be working on pretty effectively at home to help build their endurance for when they are in a grooming shop, and to also make that comfortable so that that's not part of the problem when they're in a grooming shop. And I think that the dogs that owners do this with are so much better prepared by the time they get into the grooming shop. Right? They're like, oh, well, that's not scary because that's familiar. So maybe it's being up on a table or being in a room with dogs that might be different, but being touched all over, not a big deal. Maybe it's the sound of a clipper or the sound of a dryer that's different than what was being done at home, but being touched that way, not a big deal. right? And so that's an essential part of training. And it's really exciting for owners to be able to do it and see that this is really in your best interest. As an owner, this is in your best interest to have a dog who can let you do this stuff. Now, here's another one. I want you to think about working while they're relaxed and trying to keep them relaxed the whole time. Now, I talked about it a little bit already, but this is really important because I don't want the dog to start getting worked up. Ideally, we're not getting them to the point where they're worked up and then calming them down again, right? We want to help them remain calm. This is calm time, right? So don't worry about like if your dog is like getting wiggly and stuff, and like, oh, like it's one of the most common mistakes. Owners are like, it's okay. And they let go and they let go. It's like, no, this is calm time. So if your dog does start getting a little bit worried, just hold on and calm them down again. Maybe do something different, but back off, right? You don't need to continue to touch him in the, around his ear with the remote, but you can still help him hold standing, or you can still hold onto his body and just help him calm down in your hands. Okay? And just relax. Calm him down in your hands. Now, another thing I'm going to say in here too, don't get angry with your dog, right? Don't get frustrated. No matter what methods you use for training, this is always going to be calm time. It's not a time for cookies. It's not a time for leash corrections. If you train that way, this is the time for just you and I, mommy and puppy or daddy and puppy are going to hang out here and just be calm together and just touch you all over with stuff. Figure out what you're comfortable with and build the comfort zone, right? Because you don't need to do it all today. That's part of why we want owners doing some of this as homework so that it doesn't turn into, well, let's try to get it done during a grooming day. This is something we can take our time with and build on. And you might be surprised at how much further you can get in maybe 1 week of just during your TV time or while something's in the microwave, spending a little bit of time just touching your dog all over. So find times that are going to work for that. For myself, I find that if I'm watching TV or listening to the radio or something, I can have something else going on in the background and just spend a good amount of time touching my dog all over. And kind of make it, I'd rather the vibe be more snuggle time than playtime, right? Make this just kind of snuggly. Like, all right, and I'm going to touch you here, and I'm going to touch you there, and build up to, I'm going to have you stand while I touch you here, while I touch you there. And you know what? You can even work on up high if you happen to have some place that your dog is allowed to stand up on. For instance, I work on my dog standing up and being touched all over, standing on the sofa, because they're allowed on the sofa. So that might be me sitting on the sofa with them and having them stand up and working on touching them all over because they are now used to it. They're ready for that part. It's not the same as the grooming setting or the veterinary setting, but do you see how that would prepare them for that? It would give them a little bit more knowledge and make it a little bit less weird when they get into those settings. Now, the other thing you can think about as a dog owner is to look into the Canine Good Citizen test, which is pretty common here in the United States, but the AKC, American Kennel Club, does a Canine Good Citizen test, which is basically like walking your dog near other dogs, letting a stranger walk away with your dog, like be hanging out with a stranger for, I believe it's 5 minutes. There are like 10 little steps. And basically they made that to kind of be the beginning of how to let your dog go to an animal hospital or a groomer. So it's another thing to look into. So like I said, this one's for the owners, but it's also for those of us who work with owners to say, hey, these are some things you can be working on. And for the average dog, this is the dog who doesn't have any problems yet, or maybe they have some mild problems, but nothing dangerous, right? This is prepping a dog in a nice, kind way, prepping them for things that are going to happen throughout their entire lifetime. Because every dog has some sort of grooming need throughout their whole lifetime. Every dog has some sort of veterinary care needs throughout their whole lifetime. And if we can plan ahead, we can help our dogs be healthier. If you'd like more information, you can find me at chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you.
If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional Certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist Diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.